Welcome back to my series, Exploitation Exploration, where I let you pick what exploitation movies I watch, and then I report back to you 5 films at a time. This is my 4th installment into my Exploitation Exploration series, and my 3rd taking recommendations from you. Alright, so let's get into these 5 films. If you read my Letterboxd reviews, you are going to experience some repetition here, so apologies for that. Okay, first up we have Switchblade Sisters from 1975, directed by Jack Hill, genre being teen gang, but of course it fits into many other genres as well. It was recommended by many of y'all over time, so these are the names that I do have for recommending it, but I'm sorry if you aren't mentioned here and you did recommend it. We have Mud Style, Crime for Dime, Crochet No Way, Blah, oh no, it's French, Blase Bienvenue, and yeah, probably others. And I rented this on Amazon Prime. The Silver Daggers girl gang, the Dagger Debs, is led by Lace, a fierce young girl feared by her peers. When the Debs accept a new recruit named Maggie, and their rival gang is relocated to their very own high school, the action kicks into high gear. Okay, I loved this movie. It was so good. It just flows really well, you know. It's got that Jack Hill style. Did he write it too? I don't remember, but it's got like that Jack Hill style that's just really engaging. The characters and story are just so much fun. Now, this film was originally or alternately titled The Jezebels, which, I mean, it's a title that makes sense, obviously, but it just doesn't like grab you like Switchblade Sisters does. So I definitely prefer that title. My very first impression was this elevator scene, which I loved. I knew immediately, okay, this is going to be awesome. At the very beginning, this guy walks into the elevator. He was a repo man that was trying to take stuff from Lace's family. And he's in the elevator, and then Lace walks in and just stands next to him, and she just looks at him, and just the way she looks at him, like, it's awesome because she seems sweet yet also like dangerous. It was wonderful. Yeah, so let's talk more about Lace, the gang leader here. She was just captivating, and I love the casting choice here. She's tiny, just super girly and petite. Squirrely is a word that I used. And just adorable, yet she is the leader of the gang. The way she talks through gritted teeth is just like so cute. And this actor really impressed me too. At first I was like, is this gonna work? I don't know if this is gonna work, but it did somehow. And I know people have a problem with this sort of situation in that it's not realistic. It's not realistic that this tiny cutesy girl would be the fearsome leader of a gang. And I think that also expands into this broader discussion that I see where people don't like movies where the woman is overpowering a man physically, where the woman is a fearsome fighter, or the woman has this sort of brute force through which she gets her victory. They don't like to see that because it's not realistic. People like to see a woman who like outsmarts or, you know, maneuvers her way around since she just can't beat up a man or whatever. And yes, that is a fair argument if you prefer realism in your movies, but I think it's a really fun thing to be able to explore in film. To be able to explore a woman using physical strength, or a cutesy woman being a badass. So I just, personally, I love that. I don't care if it's realistic or not. And hell, maybe it's not realistic, but maybe that's what makes it even more interesting because it's a fantasy, and I think in film we should be able to explore fantasy. So I like these films where with women in combat. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so yeah, of course, these Dagger Debs are hot or adorable and just like high school girls, right? But it's so fun to watch this movie where they are like killing people. Anyway, back to the movie. The casting was great. I loved Maggie. She had this very like trustworthy face, but I think she could still really pull off that badass thing. I also enjoyed the casting of the dudes. I mean, even though they obviously weren't in high school, they were like 30. And even though these characters, especially the dudes, are so despicable, somehow they're written and portrayed in this way where they're still somewhat likable, and I think that's what keeps the film interesting. We also have all these gang members have nicknames and stuff, which are great, like Donut. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more from Donut. So yeah, this is like a gang film, but there is some drama, and believe it or not, it kind of made me cry a little bit. That roller rink scene, man. I don't know, I was just really getting into it. You get like so attached to these characters. But there's also a lot of comedy in the film. It's just really well balanced in that way. So yeah, I went in like with no expectations, but Switchblade Sisters really impressed me. I'm gonna slap a big ol' A+ on this one. I would like to own it like really soon. It was supreme. I'm probably the last person here to watch it, but if you haven't seen it, you definitely should. Next up, you guys, I watched Spider Baby from 1967, directed by Jack Hill. The genre is horror comedy, but I noticed many exploitation elements here. This was recommended by Mudstyle and Craig Johnson, and I watched it here on YouTube. The Mary family is plagued by a strange genetic illness. They live undiscovered in seclusion until some distant cousins barge in with a lawyer. Soon the unexpected guests will discover the true horrors within the walls of this home. Another banger! I loved this movie. Being a 60s black and white horror, I wasn't expecting like too much from it. I thought it might be moody or like hip and cool but subtle, but it was so much more. I was very quickly won over by the acting. The acting is supreme, and the setting and just the unfolding of events, like what this movie is. It's very spooky, very creepy. The horror is definitely there. This film does an excellent job at being creepy and disgusting, yet at the same time very cute, funny, and charming. It taps into fear, but also garners sympathy. Okay, yes, the characters in this film are so great. Oh my gosh. And like I said before, the acting. I was really impressed by Bruno, who's played by Lon Chaney Jr. Apparently he's very famous. I don't know, sorry. And was just as much impressed by the two girls. And shout out Sid Haig. Sid Haig just great as well. But the two girls were just like really lovable. And a part of this film that really hit home for me in a funny way is when the two girls are just trying their darndest to act normal.
No room at the inn, as they say.
Good evening, Uncle Peter.
Like, I feel that. This was a really fun movie, and it was just chock full of what I would call memeable moments, but I don't want to spoil too much in case someone out there still hasn't seen it. Again, maybe I'm the last one, I don't know. This film really packed a punch. It surprised me in a lot of ways of the things that it would show and include. Now, cannibalism was touched on in the film, but they didn't go into that. I think that would have been fun, but that's really one of the only things that I would have liked more of. The film was just amazing. I often describe films in this way, but Spider Baby is another one. It is a great film to put on during Halloween time for the mood. It has that nice Halloween flavor. So yeah, this was another A+ for me, I think. Like, I would also love to own this, and I would love to revisit it many times over. And now we have to pause for this very important announcement. When I was doing research for this video, you know, just to make sure I had all my context, I found something. This film is getting a remake. Now I know apparently it's been said and announced before, but in this year, January, it was announced again that Spider Baby's really getting a remake. A director named Dustin Ferguson announced that he has the rights to remaking the film. Exciting, right? Well, I was like, who is this Dustin Ferguson? Apparently I've seen one of his movies, Amityville Toy Box. It was this terrible, terrible movie that I watched a few months ago. Dustin Ferguson has directed tons of films, but they're more like along the lines of Angry Asian Murder Hornets and Ebola Rex. And that's concerning. Obviously, there is a place for these intentionally bad horror movies, but I don't want Spider Baby to be treated in that way. You get what I'm saying? So I hope that Dustin Ferguson will take this seriously. I think Spider Baby needs to be taken seriously. Anyway, please let me know your thoughts, or if you have any more tea on this, let me know below. Moving on to my third movie recommended by you, we have The Big Doll House from 1971. Okay, I didn't intentionally go overdose on Jack Hill. These are just the ones that I grabbed without even knowing they were all from the same guy, okay? So bear with me. This is a women in prison film and is recommended by Mudstyle, and I watched it on YouTube. This film follows a cell group within a tropical women's prison, the corrupt system inside, and a select few's plans for a great escape using the resources they have available to them. From what I have read, this is a very important film for the women in prison genre. It also features Pam Grier, our queen, but I was really surprised to find out that she's not like the main character. She's just a character. However, this being a Jack Hill film, I see in a lot of his films, you get to spend a lot of time with each character. So there's not always like a main character. It reminded me of his other film, The Swinging Cheerleaders, in a lot of ways, in that everybody gets some time, you know? But so sadly, Pam isn't like the star, but obviously she's in there a lot. This film was a blast. I love women in prison. I haven't seen that much, but I love it so far. I don't know if I liked it quite as much as Black Mama, White Mama, but it was really fun, really rewatchable. And I'm realizing that I love women in prison films for the same reason why I love all-girls school films, sleepover films, sorority films, just anything that has to do with this group of women confined together and getting to watch the relationships unfold, like watch the politics within that group. It's just so fascinating and exciting to me. I just love these like girl movies. So yeah, at the beginning of this movie, when they're like wheeling the new prisoners in and they're looking down at all these other prisoners that are working in the field and they're just all super hot with this like flowing hair. I'm like, I love this. And then you get to have the "what are you in for" conversations. Like, that's my shit. I love it. Sid Haig is in this movie, and he is playing one of the slimiest characters I've seen him play so far. He's pretty nasty, but somehow he still brings some charm to the character. So this film is it's another just like point A to point B story. And it's really action-packed, and it never like bored me or anything. I thought it was really interesting, and I definitely did care about the characters. And this film did not get too bleak or too sleazy, so I think that would make this a great intro to women in prison for people who might be new to the genre. Really fun time. Next, I watched Darktown Strutters from 1975. This was directed by William Whitney. It's a blaxploitation film, but it also combines many other genres: biker, gang, crime, mystery, even musical, with a little hint of sci-fi. This was recommended by Colin McKinney, and I watched it here on YouTube. Serena, a biker gang member, goes on a quest to track down her missing mother, whose name is Cinderella. Yes, I wrote that synopsis, and it's not very good because this film is a big ol' mess that's really hard to explain. Unfortunately, I did not like it. I wanted to, okay? But very early on, I realized, like, oh, this is like a goofy movie. This is like a very, it's bonkers. It was a very off the wall comedy. It was kind of like a live action cartoon. They had like sped up fight scenes with like that silent film comedy piano going. Lots of sound effects. Okay, I did laugh a couple times, but this shit was weird, y'all. Now, the Strutters were gorgeous and their outfits were impeccable. Unfortunately, like, there's not a lot of character development in this movie. It's more just about this really, really overstuffed yet convoluted storyline. The film had a very authentic low budget feel though. You could like really tell they were having fun with the movie, but I wasn't. It was just a really ridiculous film, so ultimately I describe it as too zany for me. This is not really why I'm hanging out in the exploitation sphere. The costumes and the characters were great, but that's pretty much all it did for me. However, I feel like a lot of people probably love this movie, so I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've seen it. And my final film to report to you today is Sister Street Fighter from 1974. Directed by Kazuhiko Yamaguchi, and the genre is martial arts. Recommended to me by Jordan C, and I watched it on Tubi. Tina is a martial arts badass. I wrote this synopsis. Her brother is a cop and he gets kidnapped by a drug crime group, so Tina goes in after him. First and foremost, I watched this on Tubi and it had terrible quality. It was very, very like VHS quality, but the audio was so bad I had to keep like turning the volume up and down the whole time. I think there are some high quality releases of the film out there, and I truly think that would have made a difference in my viewing experience. Oh yeah, and on Tubi there was no captions, so I just had to like trust my ears. So as I review this film, take that into account, and also take into account that the only other similar film to this I've seen so far is probably Lady Snowbloods. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, so this story was confusing. It was kind of sporadic and all over the place. I think there were way too many characters introduced for no reason, but nevertheless, I was still able to like generally discern the good guys from the bad guys. There were some cool elements to the story, but I just don't feel like it was executed in an engaging way. And even the acting, which I thought was very good, the acting still didn't help remedy just the very detached feeling from the film. Like I've been saying in a lot of descriptions lately, the low budget was really showing here. And maybe it was also due to the quality of the upload I watched, but it kind of felt like they filmed this with minimal equipment. The camera work, it was just all like zooms, like fast zooms, whatever you call that. And it was a lot of angled, tilted shots. And that was it. It was just those two things. It's like they didn't have any other ideas. So that became very repetitive after a while. But I presume why any of us would be watching this movie is for the fight scenes, which are obviously very entertaining. And like I mentioned earlier, it's really fun to watch a female kick ass. I'm sure I'm not the only one who comes out of these films wishing I knew how to fight. So the movie wasn't that engaging. Throughout the first half, I was just like, I wasn't really into it. I got a little more into it the second half. I can't say that I would revisit this film, but it was fun enough for the 70s charm and of course the really cool fight scenes. I'm also really interested in this actress who played Tina. She seems really fascinating, so I would like to check out more of her movies. That wraps it up. That's my latest 5 first-time watches from the exploitation world. If you have recommended an exploitation film to me in the past, I am keeping it on a running list, and hopefully I'll get to yours eventually. Thank you for giving me recommendations for this path or for just watching me travel it. And until next time, ciao!